Acting Speaker. We meet today in a last-ditch attempt to elect a Speaker and to form an Executive, and we do so as the DUP continue their boycott, refusing to do their jobs. For 2 years now, we've been told that the basis of their boycott is in opposition to the Brexit protocol. The British Prime Minister revisited those arrangements, and after more negotiations with the European Union, the Windsor Framework was agreed. Yet the DUP turned up their nose at it. This has caused damaging economic uncertainty alongside political instability here. To placate the DUP further, the British Government entered direct two-way negotiations with Jeffrey Donaldson. In taking what we knew was a misguided and flawed approach to the exclusion of the other parties, and the Irish Government is co-guarantor of the Good Friday Agreement, and they've got nowhere. Before Christmas, the British Secretary of State announced their talks with the DUP have now ended, and yet Jeffrey Donaldson remains in suspended animation, undecided. All the while, children with special educational needs and their parents suffer. Patients on waiting lists crippled with pain suffer. This indecision is hampering the $3.3 billion that was put on the table, and this money now hangs on the balance. Workers are entitled and deserve their pay rise today. Public sector workers cannot be punished for the DUP failures. The Tories have chronically underfunded this Executive for over a decade, and now they scandalously use this money as ransom to cause financial pain to our public services and our public sector workers. Tomorrow, 170,000 workers will take unavoidable general strike action. Our nurses, doctors, civil servants, train drivers, bus drivers, teachers and education workers, police support staff and essentially our entire public administration. It represents the single biggest day of industrial action in a generation, and these workers should not have to take to the streets. Because of the DUP's inaction, politics here is stalled indefinitely, and our public services are at a standstill. Today is the 7th attempt since the Assembly election to restore this Assembly and Executive. To date, the DUP refused to respect the democratic outcome of that election. However, my message to the DUP is still today to join with us, work with us, let us get around the Executive table and let's make a real difference to people's lives. I stand for mature, pragmatic politics where, irrespective of your social, religious or political background, I see it as my duty to fairly stand up for everyone in our society across all of our communities and to represent the Northern Ireland Executive as a First Minister for all. Regrettably, though, the approach of the DUP leader is jeopardising vital public services, including health and education, with no clear explanation for stalling formation of an Executive. The argument that this continues to relate to the Windsor Framework has now lost all credibility. Few people out there know what the DUP are talking about, and fewer care because it's not in the common good. The hardship and suffering, the bread and butter issues for workers, families, households and businesses is what counts, and it's what the DUP still refuse to prioritise. So, the only remaining explanation for the DUP boycott is the refusal to accept a nationalist First Minister. There is a dangerous attempt underway to disregard the democratic outcome of the Assembly election, and this threatens our democratic governance, public administration, reconciliation and the very fabric of this society. If Jeffrey Donaldson does not change his approach, then this sitting may well be the final one of this Assembly. I fear that the democratic institutions of the Good Friday Agreement are in freefall, and whilst this is reprehensible, those are the hard facts before us all. At midnight tomorrow, the statutory legislation underpinning executive formation falls if it is not restored by then. The statutory duty is placed upon the Secretary of State thereafter to call another Assembly election. Those are the rules. However, Mr Heaton-Harris signalled to the parties on Monday that he intends to introduce new legislation at Westminster to change those rules and to extend the deadline. So if it is the case that the DUP will not respect the outcome of the election and restore democracy, then there is an obligation of both governments, both the British Government and the Irish Governments, to look at Plan B. There must be a British-Irish partnership that provides joint stewardship and an intensified role for the Irish Government in the affairs of this state. The public that are looking on here today are not seeing the change that they voted for in that Assembly election. If the DUP position of obstruction remains unchanged, then it is imperative that a change of direction within the constitutional framework of the Good Friday Agreement is now advanced. And if there are some within the ranks of the DUP who think that by crashing the institutions that they will also crash the Good Friday Agreement itself, may I say you are wrong. The Good Friday Agreement will prevail.
Thank you.